2024 Arcata Fire District regular. We're going to stand and give the Pledge of Allegiance, but before we start the pledge, we're going to have a moment of silence in recognition of the passing of Anthony Benalisha. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board clerk, please call the roll.
Director Arcata.
Here.
Director Johnson is absent tonight. Director Maynor.
Here.
Director Mendoza.
Here.
President Loudwater.
Here. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Before I call roll, there is a spelling error on page 2. Under district business, number 2, we have a draft SAMPE ordinance instead of a draft sample ordinance.
I like your spelling better.
Spell check. Somehow it's a word, I guess. I don't know.
Look and see what it means.
So, with that being said, Director Arcata.
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Maynor.
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
President Loudwater.
Yes. Are there any discussion or comments from the board? There are no comments from the directors. Is there any discussion from the public? Seeing none. There are no public comments. We have a motion by Director Arcata and a second by Director Mendoza. You already called the roll for this, didn't you? This crib that you've given me is not quite perfect.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. So we now have a time for public comment and association reports. Any person may address the district board on any subject pertaining to district business which is not listed on the agenda. This comment is provided by the Ralph M. Brown Open Meeting Act and may be limited to 3 minutes for any person addressing the board. Any request that requires board action may be set by the board for a future agenda or referred to staff. Are there any public comments? Do we have any senior management group have anything to report? Local 4981. Does the local 4981 have anything to report?
Yes, just with the passing of Anthony Benalisha, the support coming in has just been amazing. I just wanted to, give thanks and let know to local 522, which is Sacramento's local, has been coming out and helping us tremendously. 652 Humboldt Bay firefighters, and then Cal Fire 2881 also have been just an outpouring of support. It's been amazing to see, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and give it recognition for just how amazing it is. So that's all.
Moving on to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are considered routine and are acted upon by the board with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input may request that the board remove the item from the consent calendar. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any members of the public that wanted any questions? Is there any board or public member that would like a specific item removed from the consent calendar? If there are no comments from the board, I will entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Director Maynor and a second by Director Arcata. Director Arcata.
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Maynor.
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
President Loudenslager.
Yes. District business. Item number 1, consider approval of temporary reorganization of the administration team and reclassify Assistant Chief Emmons to interim deputy chief. Do we have a staff report?
Sure, I'll make it real quick. So, Ross McDonald, my brother, has been offered the job of the assistant chief. In keeping true to our nepotism policy, Assistant Chief Emmons handled the whole process, and I recused myself from it. Now that he is in line to take the job, we have another nepotism conflict that I cannot directly supervise him. So much like we are today, there's a layer of management between me and Ross. So the ask is that we would make Chris an interim deputy chief that would oversee all assistant chiefs, in this case one. And we drafted a side letter that discusses that process. Essentially, the deputy chief job description is the same as the assistant chief. On paper, Chris would be the supervisor, and just like today, if there was any conflict, per policy, I'm recusing myself. Chris handles the initial issue, and then from Chris, it would go to the district board. So the side letter stipulates that it would start on March 18th, which is when Ross would be promoted for the overlap for the succession planning. And the side letter would expire on June 26th, which would be my last day in the office before I start taking vacation to get August 1st. So it would just be a short period of time, temporary. The other thing I'm asking in there is to bump Chris's pay to the $62 an hour, which is what his rate of pay is going to be for his fire chief position, just to bring him along as he's shadowing me through the fire chief duties for the next few months. Anyway, any questions?
Do the directors have any questions? I don't see any. We have a call for a motion. I do believe
Public comment.
Public comment.
public comment. And does this require a motion?
Yeah, so staff recommendation would be to approve the temporary reorganization of the admin team, reclassify Assistant Chief Emmons into interim deputy chief, set his pay rate at $62 an hour. $62 an hour, I'm having trouble tonight. And approve the side letter with the senior management, which is attachment 2. And the temporary org chart is attachment 1.
I'll make the motion. Move to approve the temporary reorganization of the admin and reclassify Chief Emmons to interim deputy chief at $62 an hour. And
Approved side letter.
Approve the side letter.
approve the side letter. Where is that? Approve the side letter with the senior management group.
Don't you hate that?
I'll second.
Okay, with a motion by Director Maynard and a second by Director Arcata. Director Arcata.
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Maynard.
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
President Loudonslaughter.
Yes. Agenda item 2, consider and provide staff direction as to the reinstatement of board member compensation. Is there a staff report?
Yeah.
Never mind.
I forget something.
We can
We'll
just go,
discuss it later.
can we just go back up to those? Is that what you're?
No, I forgot to bring something.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. So
You guys have done nothing wrong. I just forgot to bring something.
So this is a holdover from last month. The direction was to do some more research and bring back our findings. So we have reached out to Ryan, our attorney, and Larry, our accountant, and we've got some information. Bottom line, if the board so chooses to reinstate compensation, at the most for the next 12 months, you can do it, is for $100 per meeting. And that is set by the Health and Safety Code, section 13857. However, part B of that section references.
Wasn't me.
Going wrestling upstairs.
Training.
The part B of it references the water code, which allows for the fire board to have a not to exceed 5% increase after 12 calendar months of the compensation. So if we want to work up to $125 a meeting, it's going to take a little while, but there is a mechanism to do it. It's just a convoluted, weird thing where the health and safety code that governs fire districts references the water code that governs community services district, but it's the same law. I asked Ryan in layman's terms if this is all correct, which he said yes. Larry, our accountant, said it's not a big deal. The 1099 NEC, which is a non-employee compensation 1099, is what you guys would fall under, because you're not employees, therefore it's not payroll. It would just be a stipend. So if the board desires to proceed with this action, staff is recommending the compensation take effect July 1st of 2024, so that funding can be included on our budget prep process. And to achieve the July 1st start date, the board would need to follow the procedure for adopting of an ordinance by introducing it and holding the first reading at the March 12, 2024 meeting, and then set the matter for a public hearing and final adoption on the April 9th, 2024 meeting. So part of the process for compensation of the board members is you got to do it via ordinance, and per code, it takes 60 days after the ordinance for that compensation to take effect. So that's the timeline. And then as Becky and I were contemplating things, we came up with about 5 questions that if the board is desirous of going down this path, then we need some more feedback from you guys to make it work. So question 1 is, what are the types of meetings that the board is going to make compensable? And right now I have it set to probably the most lenient. So if you look into the ordinance, it talks about regular meetings, special meetings, workshop trainings, and that. Committee meetings by board action. If you don't want that, if you just want special meetings and regular meetings, that's fine. But that's something that you guys would have to discuss. The other one is, what's the method what method will prompt the payment of compensation. So we just have to work out whether it's the roll call at the meeting or you guys submit a claim at the end of the month of, you know, I went to this committee meeting, this regular meeting, just something so that we have a kind of a process in place for that. The other question would be is how often for compensation. In the past, it was quarterly, and then it switched to biannually. I think it was way back in 2016. The concern that I think, Randy, you brought up in phone conversation with me and with Eric as well was if you want to opt out, that we were talking that would probably be best to have some sort of mechanism, either a form that is signed or somewhere that documents it so that you can officially say nope, and then 5 years down the road you don't come back and say, hey, you owe me $500 for missing meetings.
Plus interest.
Plus interest, yeah, there you go. And then the method of tracking, again, for attendance and dispersal compensation, you were saying that we can do direct deposit?
It is an option.
It is an option?
That's how we pay the employees, and it's a simple deposit into your bank account from CoCentral.
So the bottom line, I have a sample ordinance. It's kind of a combination. I actually acquired it from Coastside Fire Protection District. It is set at $100 a meeting, no more than 4 meetings a month. The law allows you to do 6 meetings a month, but I figure if we hit 6 meetings a month, somebody's
Not doing something.
we got bigger issues. And then it's set for all regular meetings and special meetings, committee meetings, and or educational training activities for board participation. And if you have multiple meetings, I'm sorry, in a day, you only get $100 for the day. Part of that, it's also coupled with reimbursement. This was a change 2020, 2021 for reimbursement of public officials. Your reimbursement follows what our district policy is for reimbursement, but it really specifically spells it out, because at the end of the year, anything over $500 we have to report on a form, on transparency on our webpage that says how much reimbursement has been made, not only to board members, but employees.
But that's already the case with your travel reimbursements and that kind of stuff, so.
So on this
Questions from the board?
on the sample draft of this ordinance, the only thing that's really changing is the section 2 from what we already have in place.
Section 2, yeah, so we had originally discussed, I think it was $125 is what well-established boards have been doing it for a while, have bumped it up, but per Ryan's, we can't do more than $100, so yeah, that's where we set it.
But the section 4 and that's all pretty much the same as what we're doing right now.
Correct.
For the
Actually, I take that back. I just saw it on page 66. This was a cut and paste out of Coastside. We actually follow the GSA per diem for meals and incidentals. So section C, part D, it talks about $20 for breakfast, lunch, and $40 for dinner. Our policy specifically follows GSA, which is tied to the zip code. So if you go to someplace like San Francisco, there's a little bit more versus if you go to someplace that's cheaper.
We wouldn't make it that specific.
Yeah, no, and that way as
indicate we're
GSA
following.
changes, we don't have to redo the ordinance on it. So that would be a change if it's brought back.
Any other comments or questions from directors?
I have a question for staff as far as the fiscal or accounting part of it. One of your 5 questions is when will compensation occur? What would be easiest for the accounting side of it, for the office staff? Would it be once a year, once a quarter?
We do payroll every 2 weeks, so we can do it with payroll at the end of one of the months. I mean, it's not gonna ever fall exactly, well, rarely fall in line with payroll, so we could do it with a monthly bill pay, but again, we do everything every 2 weeks. I do. This one may completely change her processes to make it work for her better, so that's a little early. No,
Based
You
on
got
the
thrown
small
under the bus.
amount I know, I don't see any issues as far as it being inconvenient for us, based on what I've learned in 2 days. I don't see it being-
Nice. We're off to a good start.
Yeah, I personally, I think, just as these questions go, that first question, I think it should just be meetings and special meetings, not the training. Would special trainings be like out of town training, and would that be per day? You know, like.
So that's a discussion for you guys.
Okay.
Yes, it could be. So 3-day out-of-town class, that's $300. You could have it limited to a specific all-hands board training. Really, it's what's constituting a meeting, you know, and I think, again, I put that in there just because that was their starting place. From what I'm hearing from the board, the committee meetings, and the special meetings, and the things that you're actually, you know, serving on.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my feelings, is it's just the meetings and the special meetings. I mean, this is not paid, so I wouldn't feel comfortable taking it daily for an out of town training. And then I think for your number 2, I think just the easiest for you guys would just be roll call, right? The roll call.
Instead of meeting.
Yeah, I think that's just the easiest. And then, yeah, monthly, quarterly, it doesn't, I don't think it really matters to anybody. It doesn't matter to me how it's dispensed. Those are my only comments.
I guess I'm old school. I'm a little uncomfortable with it. I think I'm thinking back when we were doing Measure F and we were out talking to citizens, and especially senior citizens who are on limited incomes, and I remember facing them face to face saying, you know, we can't afford this rate increase. And it was nice to tell them that, you know, I'm paying the same as you are, and I'm just out representing you, and I'm here serving for you, and I'm your voice. And you know, like I said in my letter that Justin read, and I appreciate you reading that. I'm not going to argue it, but I'm uncomfortable with it. So, based on what, unless someone can convince me otherwise, and I'm open to listening to any arguments, I would be a no vote.
I just think with gas and the cost of a babysitter, you know, for any board member that's not retired, I think $100 a night compensation is not that big a deal for the district, and I think it would help to help a board member, especially a younger board member that has children or something like that, cover just a babysitter. A babysitter is almost $100 a night these days, so I think just with gas and a babysitter, I think it's fair. My 2 cents.
What are our options? I know this was brought to staff by Director Johnson, and she may have some comments on this. What are our options in terms of maybe putting this over to next month when she's here to comment, or maybe a couple months? What are our options as far as that goes?
The options, that's entirely, yeah, you can table it. It would just be, so really, the key date is trying to be 60 days ahead of the start date of when you want the compensation to occur. The first reading happens, it has to be at a regularly scheduled meeting, And then we could do a special meeting 5 days later to do the public hearing, second reading, and adoption of the ordinance. If we miss the July 1st and you get August 1st, you know, it's not the end of the world. So to answer your question, I don't see a huge rush on this. The bigger question is, if we're looking like we're going that way, then we need to be able to anticipate putting that funding into the budget.
Can you do that without a vote?
I'm already planning on it. So is Chris. Yeah.
Because I think table until Nicole's here, until we have a full board is, I mean, nobody's in a hurry for this. And
Not
it's
in a
just
hurry.
something, yeah.
But you're gone next month.
I'm gone next month.
I am too.
So,
Till April.
yeah, you can table it to April.
Are you guys good with that?
Well, I'm sorry, I'll be gone in April. I'll be done. But,
I mean, you've spoken,
yes. I
you know
am-
your opinion, so if we had to do it, shuffle it. We could remind you all at the next meeting.
Or you can go to Humboldt Access TV and watch it.
Yes. There we go.
So the only question and comment I have is that if one of us who's retired chooses to not take a stipend for the meetings, they may still like to be reimbursed for travel expenses when going to
The-
That's
training
always
and
gonna happen.
other stuff.
That, good point. You already have in your board policy manual the reimbursement process. This is just restating it so it can be very clean and clear in the ordinance if you go for compensation. So yes, you will continue to be reimbursed for your expenses while you're off on training for district business.
This part is added to your board policy manual, not
Okay.
changing the other stuff.
And your board policy manual would, much like the reference to the water code, your board policy manual would refer to this ordinance under the compensation side of it, so that we're not gonna have conflicting documents. It'll just always refer to the ordinance.
So this, I think to answer that question, the sample draft that you put in here, the only part that applies to our board policy packet would be for the reimbursement of the meetings. Everything else is gonna stay the same. Right?
Yeah, if this doesn't happen, you already have a reimbursement policy in place. If this does happen, then the board policy manual would then reference this ordinance from this point on.
Any other comments or questions from the board? So I believe we will just table it and,
Public comment.
oh, public comment. Sorry. I see no public comment. So we will table this and have a further discussion at either next month's meeting or in April. So
Wait, do we need a motion for tabling it?
We should, yes.
Yes, I would say make
Okay.
if you do a motion and set a date, and then that way we can make sure.
Set a date.
When
Okay.
is-
So let's
when is
choose a
your
meeting.
You're here in April?
I'm here in April.
Are you here, Randy? You here in April?
Should be.
Lane?
I'm not here in April.
Do you want to be here?
No, I don't necessarily need to be here for it.
Well,
tell
you
me when
guys
our
might have the
April meeting
votes
is.
to do it tonight.
Well, and that's the
Let's
thing,
see.
I mean, I don't know how that goes. I mean, if we have the votes to do it tonight, we know how Nicole feels. I mean, if we want to make a motion tonight to do.
So here's devil's advocate.
Straw poll.
If you approve this concept, we still have to bring it back for a first reading. We already know that we need to make some changes to the ordinance, given so that it'll match the per diem from the feds. So if the majority of the board approves it, because I know Nicole was the one that brought it up. She's not gonna vote against it. There'll still be a chance to kill it, if you will, at next month or the month after. But if you approve the concept, and before somebody makes a motion, that I need to be clear that meetings and special meetings only are gonna be the compensatory events, not committees, not training, not anything else, correct?
That would be my vote.
And it would be, the method of prompting the payment would be roll call of special meetings and regular meetings. I would throw out quarterly, it'd probably be easier for just bookkeeping. And we'll develop a really simple form that says, thanks but no thanks. We'll donate it to the Chief's retirement fund. I didn't say which one. And I don't know that, and we can do a direct deposit. So that all,
As long as everybody's comfortable giving that information. I mean,
yeah.
'cause there will be other documents that you'll have to fill out and that we will keep as basically part of HR folders.
So Director Johnson would still have a chance to comment on this and everything.
Yep.
So the motion would be to provide staff direction? What would the motion?
So I think that you have provided direction, everybody's nodding in agreement, so the motion would be to continue this and bring this ordinance back in first reading in March.
So I move to continue with the reinstatement of board member compensation with the discussion being held in March. Does that work?
So if we're doing a discussion, there's no action other than bringing back the ordinance in draft form. If you wanted to move forward in the process, then it would be brought back as an action item to start the procedure to approve the ordinance. So that's fine. We can bring it back, clean draft. Everybody has one last chance to say yay or nay.
So I move for the reinstatement of the board compensation, and then whatever Justin just said needed to be done to do that.
Bring back a draft ordinance at the March meeting for further discussion.
All second?
That was you? Okay, with a motion by Director Maynor and a second by Director Arcana. Excuse me, Director Arcana.
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Maynor?
Yes.
Director Mendoza?
No.
President Loudenslager?
Yes.
And Justin, you'll put the stuff, or Chief, you'll put the stuff in there about the, what will prompt the compensation and what will, the quarterly and the roll call.
We'll put that as, that will likely go in your board policy. So the next iteration of this will have the draft ordinance that's clean, and we'll have the language that it would be inserted into the board policy. That would cover your time and place.
District business number 3, consider and approve proposed contract with Fire Grants Expert for FEMA Safer Grant application. Do we have a staff report?
So this was a carryover from last month as well. Myself and most of the union leadership had to run out on an incident just as we were getting to this, so it was more of an information item last month, I believe, and we were directed to come back with additional information. So during the recent fire chief promotional exam, one of the identified goals for the 5-year plan that I presented was to seek funding to increase staffing for the district. Through discussion with Local 4981's leadership, a company who has been highly successful in obtaining FEMA funding for staffing was identified. Staff and union leadership conducted multiple consultations with members from Fire Grants Experts, that's the name of the company, and found their services could be beneficial toward improving our success in applying for the highly competitive SAFER grants. Staff is seeking direction from the board regarding pursuing a SAFER grant through FEMA. The application period for the SAFER grants opened January 29th of this year, and with the grant application period closing February 26th of this year. Staff have received a contract proposal from fire grants experts to write the FEMA SAFER grant application. The cost of the contract is proposed at $6,500. If approved, we would use $3,000 from our financial consulting line item, which is our human resources line item. I'm sorry, we would use it from our financial consulting line item and $3,500 from the human resources line item. That would be repurposed to pay for the grant writing service. So far, we're currently midway through the fiscal year and have no other pending costs for those line items. It's unknown at this time how many positions would be sought through the grant until further discussion and research is conducted by the consultant as part of the service. The grant writing consultant advised that grant submissions are more successful with the standards of cover, which, on a side note, we're beginning the process this Friday. He also indicated that if we're not successful in obtaining the grant this year, having the feedback and the standards of cover for the following year tends to increase the success rate substantially. The caveat is it's unknown whether the SAFER grants would come back the next year. As everything is fiscally in the federal system, things get cut. So, at this point, staff is recommending the board consider the information provided, discuss, take public comment, consider awarding the contract for grant writing services with Fire Grants Expert for a cost not to exceed $6,500, and authorize the fire chief to execute the contract.
Are there questions from the directors?
Yeah. I have.
Start with
Go.
Jason.
First of all, how long would the grant cover the positions for? How many years?
Typically 3 years.
And what happens after that?
Well, when the money runs out, if you don't have alternative sources to cover those, then they become essentially the employees get laid off.
That's why.
Have these SAFER grants come and gone over the years, or have they been, has the continuity been there at the federal level as far as the funding goes?
I think that they've been there, however, the rules change from year to year. So like this year, there is no matching cost with it. Past years, they changed the rules to where you had to put in
50% match?
50? Yeah. So this year, there wouldn't be a matching cost with it.
This, I think to your point though, the Fire Act funding has been appropriated for several years. The piece of the pie that the fire gets has been dwindling. This current Fire Act slug of money is set to expire after this grant cycle. So it's tied to an election year. Depending on what goes on, we'll see if it gets renewed. I forget if this is the third, or do you guys know?
I want to say third time.
How many?
Three?
Yeah,
I
I
thought
think
it
this is the
was
third iteration of Fire Act
Of
funding.
fire, yes, of the fire grants.
Okay, so I have several questions. So the first one is, we have done this before, correct, as a district, I think?
Twice.
Was it successful? Was it, and how did it end? And did it end well? How was the department after the money ran out, as far as coverage and how the staff felt about it after the fact?
So
Those
we had our initial was hiring 3 people under the SAFER grant. It was a 3-year process. Once you get SAFER funding and you are pending layoffs, and the jobs were announced as FEMA funded 3-year term, there is no expectation of ongoing employment if the grant was not re-upped. Because we were laying off, the score was higher for us, and we also asked for an additional 3 more bodies. So for the next go around, we had 6. We didn't spend it right away, so we were able to get, gosh, I think, what, 3 extensions?
It was 3, yeah.
And again, the 3 additional bodies that we hired were hired under the auspice of it is grant funded, no guarantee. The positions are not even written into the contract under the MOU as mandatory filled positions. As far as the morale goes, and something that I think that Nicole touched on was how was the crew? The concept was the FEMA grant was to kickstart Major A. If we got the federal government to pay for these positions and then Major A came along, we could take the burden on as the district, and hey, we're all good. As we all know, Major A went down in defeat. And the writing was on the wall that the layoffs were not tied to just the FEMA positions. The district was broke, and luckily through attrition and employees seeking permanent, long-term, secure positions elsewhere, we did not have to sustain any layoffs. And we were able to extend that FEMA grant out as people were leaving. It was just paid for, and as we heard through the consultant, as long as FEMA's in the loop, you write, hey, can we do this? They approve it, everything's good, you pass the audit. So I think the morale was absolutely tied to our district financial situation. It was not tied because all 6 employees that were hired knew at the very beginning they were grant funded. Now granted, I think a majority of those folks that were grant funded moved up into covered positions under our minimum staffing. It's, you'll see it a lot out there, other agencies. It's a lot of places are advertising positions as FEMA funded, grant funded. And that's an opportunity that you take probably as a new firefighter. You get your foot in the door, you get a job, and you get experience, and then, you keep seeking employment elsewhere. I think your timing is probably very similar to where we were with Major A, that if you get a federal grant and you bring on these people, it could kickstart something for the redo of Major F or the benefit assessment. But I don't know, Nate, you were here living through it as well, and Ross is.
Yeah, it was, I got the demotion letter.
Yeah, it was
tough.
It was hard. It was not, it was all pretty well discussed, and, it was not a pretty sight to give RIF notices and layoff notices, but.
Was it good for the district overall? Was the experience,
Well,
and for?
I'll speak from an administrative side. Under understaffed administration, it was a pain in the ass. Sorry, you too. It was dealing with the paperwork, and even though there's the Federal Paperwork Reduction Act, that was absolute pucky because we had reams of paper. In fact, we had a part-time office tech that managed the grant for us. I think where we are today, that there's capable people that can probably run paperless with our systems. As far as the staffing, honestly, that's how we got the 3 stations being staffed.
So it's good for the community.
It was absolutely good for the community. We were set for 2 stations staffed and a floater position. The FEMA grant allowed us to go 3 stations staffed with no floater positions.
Yeah.
The downside is you're always at minimum staffing, and any day off, somebody's getting forced to work. I think that if it wasn't for the SAFER grant, we would never have been able to get to the point where we are today with the 3 station staff. Simple as that.
And then my last question is this February 6th deadline. Are you shooting for that deadline if we approve this?
February 26th. but
They,
yes.
they can get a grant written in 14 days, in 2 weeks?
Hence the benefit of a grant writing consultant. They're not reinventing the wheel. We're not reinventing the wheel. We have access online through our FEMA portal for all of the 14 grants that I think that we've applied through since this money's been out there. A lot of that information has not changed. We're still, 62 square miles. We still have 3 fire stations. We still have the Cascadia event, and HSU, and all this other stuff. The majority of it, because our webpage, thank you, Alyssa, is so robust with information and the consultant is going to be able to pull all the information they need, budget, district demographics out of that.
And if we don't get it this year, we should reapply next year, so it'd be another $6,500 next year.
Potentially.
If the money's there.
If the
It sounds like we have even better chance statistically if we don't get it this year, if we apply next year. Okay.
Yeah. And something that I'd heard, screening has always been humans. First round screening has been a human reviewing your application. This year it's going to be, and I don't know, maybe last year was too, it's AI. So there's no human, so whatever you write, the genius in the computer kicks it in or out, and there's no discussion, no questions. We have not gone through that as an organization. We've always been the old school. Second round of review is actually firefighters and fire services and individuals that are reviewing it. So, if the board is going to follow what Chris is putting out there, as the old guy walking out the door, I would say this is not the time to try to do something on your own, especially with, 3 weeks to go. That if you got to get past that first hurdle, you got to make it stick.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
I've got a few things I'd like to say. I don't think there's any harm in voting for the $6,500 for the grant thing tonight, but I have some concerns. Well, first of all, I am for 3-person engines. I want to see 3 on an engine. That is a goal that as long as I'm here, I want to see that. And I think this is a good way to do that. But I've been here a while, and I've learned from some mistakes that some of our predecessors have made, and we shouldn't make those mistakes again. I agree with Nicole. I felt the morale thing when I came here, when I arrived on the board. We've done a lot of shoveling to get past that. When we lost Measure A, it was a sucker punch in the gut. And we worked, I think I did for a month, maybe 2 months, I think I did something on Measure F every day. We worked our butts off on that. And are we ready to do that again? See, the thing that I'm concerned about is we have some new issues here. We have a 7-story residence hall skyscraper overlooking the freeway that every McKinleyville resident sees when they go by. We have the city of Arcata's Gateway project. I have friends in McKinleyville. I'm not a McKinleyville rep, but I have a lot of friends up in McKinleyville, and they've talked to me about Arcata taking the biggest chunk of the district pie, and they're not interested in the folks I've talked to. They don't want to pay for any of this extra. I can see that these big, these skyscrapers, these tall buildings, the district can't even afford to buy a ladder truck, la-di-da-di-da. We've gotten some traction on that, but that could come back to bite us in that, so that we're going to really have to work hard in our message here, because people are going to misunderstand, in my opinion. I think people could look and say, well, they're getting these positions because, you know, the university and the city of Arcata are creating this. And then so when we start to do measure, the new Measure F, are they gonna say enough? And say no, because we did not, if my memory serves me well, we did not get high voter turnout in McKinleyville. So we got a lot of work to do there. If we got, I would say even some strategic planning. If we want to do this, I think we'd be making a mistake if we just punt and get the grant and see what happens. I think we need to do more. And I want to support our new fire chief. I think it's, I like that you did this, but I think it's going to require a lot of work before, we're going to have a lot of work out there before we start the election for Measure F renewal, and in my opinion. So if we're willing to do that, you know, and I think it's going to require a lot of thought, especially, you know, and for me, it's always, I think our constituents, I think, will vote yes. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not sure about your constituents. We got some work to do up there.
That's messaging. Yeah.
And they're a big chunk. It's a big chunk of the district. And I could really see the university and the city, not intentionally, but accidentally backing over the top of us with their projects. So I'll support doing the grant because of the time thing, but I think that I'm hopeful that we can come up with some strategic planning or something to you know, increase the benefit assessment. We need to do that. And when are we going to do it? You know, we've got to do that because literally we do not have, we're not funded for appropriately for what our mission is. And the standards of coverage study is going to show that. We all know that. So we got, if we have, and you know, we got some fresh meat coming in the door. You know, if you guys want to roll up our sleeves and work on this, I'll be with you every step of the way if I can. But I think we got work to do if we're going to do this.
Randy, you bring up a good point. You mentioned the $6,500 versus the total of the grant. Much like the previous thing, the ordinance for compensation of board employees. Tonight's question is, do you fund the consultant to assist us with figuring out how many people to ask for and, you know, putting the package together? If we're lucky enough to get this grant, you can still vote to not accept it. If you know, and that's totally acceptable, that it's not the right time, maybe the grant match changed, you know, who knows, but there's still an out. So committing $6,500 tonight is not committing to a 3-year deal with the federal government. The other thing, I think, to Randy's point, I do remember all the public meetings that we went to. The question that you're going to get asked the next time is, what did you do to secure funding before you come back and ask me as a taxpayer for more money? And, you know, we're trying to tackle the Orva May funds to acquire fire engines, if we're going FEMA for staffing, and even Cal OES through the special district grants for staffing. Those are all check marks that we can put on when you're back out peddling a benefit assessment or a tax. But again, I think to Randy's point, the question tonight is $6,500 worth of time and effort for staff to work with the consultant. And again, the finished product is ours. Next time around, we may be able to just cut and paste. Heck, it might be able to be used for the special district funding through Cal OES. That a lot of that information is going to be similar. So.
Any other comments from the other directors? I will only say that I won't repeat his comments, but I share most of Randy's. I've had conversations with the chief about timing for looking at amending and changing the benefit assessment. I just using an online inflation calculator government thing, what we pay $88 for our homes that started in 2006 should be like $136 now. I don't know. I didn't look at the whole budget and to see how many people that would put on an engine. Whether if we had an inflation factor built in there. But I would reemphasize that along with this, we need to be working soon on a strategic plan. We have a whole bunch of balls in the air. We have the campus building and tall buildings. We have the gateway plan. We have the SOC, which is being done. And if all of those things were done, we would be better positioned to know what we want to do with regard to both the benefit assessment and Measure F. But from my perspective, part of the benefit assessment, we need to get that adjusted for inflation, and then we need to try to build an inflation factor into it. So, because that is going to be becoming a declining source of revenue over time. I talked to fire board members from Rancho Adobe, and they had mentioned that all of their special assessments have inflation factor built into it, much like on our property taxes. So they don't have that declining line. It may not actually keep up with all the inflation aspects, but it's bad. They don't have to worry about Measure F going away after 10 years. And I do think we need to have a strategic plan. It'll probably have to wait until the SOC is done. But we need to really work hard to try to, in my view, make Measure F permanent and build inflation factors into both of those so we don't have to run scared all the time as board members, looking not at next year's budget, but looking at budgets 5 years down the line and worrying about how the community's going to react to those sorts of things. And my concern, similar to Randy's, is that I want to go after inflation factor, and I want to, on both of them when they get renewed, and make it Measure F permanent. But I don't want to ask them for bodies that FEMA's paying for now. That's what I worry about. That we need to have a strategic plan that deals both with putting 3 people on an engine and not having the community feel like they're being dinged again. And how we massage that and present it, I think, will require some creativity.
Yeah, can I just add that we have a city within the city here. They don't pay anything. That's the thing. And as our constituents are covering the bill, the state of California is creating a large demand on our services, and our constituents are footing the bill. And as representatives of our constituents, I need to say that because I don't want to lose. I'm going to say it every time I can because it's not right, and it's not right. A lot of our problems would not be here if they paid their fair share.
Agreed.
So we need to have, is there a motion?
I'll move that that we award the contract for grant writing services with Fire Grants Expert for a cost not to exceed $6,500 and to authorize the fire chief to execute the contract.
Second.
Excuse me. With a motion by Director Mendoza and a second by Director Maynard. Director O'Connor.
Yes.
Director Johnson is absent. Director Maynard.
Yes.
Director Mendoza.
Yes.
President Loudenslager.
Yes.
Maybe we can hire Justin back as our consultant.
Could we make a comment too, or is it out of
Should be
line
public
here?
comment.
Public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. About this, next?
I think that's President.
Well,
I was like,
we
I'm
are-
coming, but I
we
didn't
are-
miss the opportunity to say something.
I apologize.
No, you're right.
I called for a motion. The directors had a conversation, and there was a call for a motion, and I have the wrong order.
You're doing great.
I'm supposed to have
That- the
invited
script.
public comment, so
I
will-
rescind my motion.
No, I second.
I want to hear public.
I do too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, for anyone, we appreciate the motion, and we do support, admin, what they've been trying to do with increasing staffing. And I appreciate all of your comments. I think there's a lot of fear when it comes to grants. When I first started in the fire service, I was a CDF guy before CAL FIRE. I knew when I got hired, I would be laid off in 5 or 6 months. And that was what I knew going into it. And so as much as nobody would like to see somebody laid off, I do think there is a peace of mind being somebody that had worked in that system, that I knew at any moment I could be let go. And that there may not be a job next summer, depending on weather, other factors, and that was the life that I had. So I think this is an opportunity to get people in the door. And also, I think, to answer kind of your point on needing more in the future, I think we could all make the argument to our hard argument to make, but even if we had 9 people on duty, that's still not enough to fight some of the fires that are coming into our area. So I think it's kind of a twofold thing in my imagination of saying this, is that it's the grant, and then also seeking out other avenues down the road as well, prior to the measures sunsetting. So we support it. We know there's a fear with grants and that type of situation, but I also think that you learn from everybody. And so as being somebody who's moved through the career, I've learned a tremendous amount from people who were only 1 or 2 years on the job. And if we maybe didn't have that opportunity, we're not finding the next Ross McDonald or the next Nate Padula. And getting those folks on, we get a chance to learn from them a little bit quicker. Technology is changing so fast around us that I'm learning quite a bit through some of the new folks that we have right now. And then the other thing that it does is it gives us an opportunity to maybe answer some of the questions that you have. They would start using benefits, being able to take some time off. It gives us an idea now to see what that looks like for the funding to move forward. And it almost gives us a few years to have it as a blueprint of what we're really, with the standards of coverage, be able to say, this is the kind of funding that maybe we actually are needing to go forward, because we've had these grant positions and we've kind of seen what this looks like with them on board. So maybe it gives us some answers, as well as being a little fearful on that as well. And then with the potential extensions through FEMA, if we keep them on board, we do have a number of folks that are in that 3 to 5 year window of retirement. And so what it seems the fire service for me has been is that when you need the next person in line, we're having to start over because there wasn't enough people to already train and ready to go. This maybe gives us an opportunity to get them trained, get them in the door, they learn this way, and by the time we start seeing the retirements come up, they're now filling those permanent roles from maybe the hiring that we did on the FEMA side. So a lot to think about, obviously, but I just wanted to throw it out there that we do support the mission of it, to seek through it. Appreciate your motion for the 6,500, and yeah, there's a lot of big things happening, so I'll try it.
We don't need to redo the motion, do we?
Not unless somebody's
Changing their mind.
changing their mind, but
Change your heart?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
District business item number 4, review of 2023 year-end statistics. Is there a staff report?
There is. This is a night of are you hiding in the corner already? Night of training. So Chris was introducing his staff report, and Alyssa put this really cool graphic together. It looks way better than the years that I did kind of a PowerPoint. So part of that privilege of coming up with a fancy new presentation is she's got to give it to you. That's public information on it.
You sure you don't want Chris to go first?
Oh, Chris already went. Now it's your turn.
Okay. So let's see, what page are we? 73 is where it starts.
Yes.
So this looked way prettier in color with black background, but we made sure
Please
to
visit
make it.
www.arcatafire.org.
Yes, please go to our website. Please. Actually, that's not the color version. That's the black and white
Grayscale in there,
version. It's grayscale. So if you would like to see a very exciting version of it, and then I can track your analytics now on our website. So yeah, please do visit it sometime soon. First page, we're just looking at call volume over the months. So we had our highest month in January of 2023 as far as calls go. Total call volume overall was 3540. You can see just some facts at the bottom about which calls we had. Total for all fires 237. Let's switch to the next page where we're looking at incident by type. So I made this graph and I was comparing it just today to last year's to see kind of where we were at and what it looked like as far as fires, if they've gone up or down. And we have gone down by what, 0.1%? I'm attributing that to prevention, so. So yeah, we had 6.9% in fires. You can see the other percentages there. Obviously, the highest is rescue EMS. That's always going to be the highest here. Summary of staff hours at the bottom, so career hours versus volunteer hours. Moving to the next page would be incident percentage by zone. So the majority of our calls are in Arcata, and then they sort of spread out in McKinleyville, and then again to the other sides of the community. We have incident count by shift and also by station. The incident area map doesn't look as exciting in grayscale, but you can see it on our website. It goes from red to blue, and you'll see all the different colors there.
Just real quick, by
Yeah.
the way, the darker the color is the more dense call volume. Just so happens that's where your fire stations are located. So, you know, when anybody asks why you have fire stations where you do, this map right here should be the thing that you pull out to show people.
Yeah, and it looks like the 299 intersection of the 101 is very busy. We have a very busy time there all the time. Next is incident count by hour. This one was kind of interesting. It's by hour by area. So you can see the area and the hour of the day that things are most busy. Moving on to incident value and loss, I'm not going to read all of the percentages, but we'll just say the total combined pre-incident value for saved is $53,627,906, and losses would be $2,472,785. So we had a 95% save rate there, which was really nice. Keeping going. Incidents by day of the week. We all know Mondays are the worst, and that rings true. Mondays are the worst for everybody. So highest call day of the week, Monday, second day being Friday. The renumbering of the apparatus types, this was for me because I just wanted to know, that we switched from 15, 17, 11, 19. We've done a lot of changing since I've been here, so this was more for me to understand where they are. And I know they change a lot, so it's more just like understanding the apparatuses. That was a lot for me too. So overtime hours on the next page, and then time off hours on the bottom. Oh, that happened in grayscale that I didn't realize all the numbers. You can't see them, so you'll just have to go to the website for that one. If I didn't put the number, if it wasn't big enough to fit on the graph, it's right above it. So it's in white and you can't see it. My apologies there. Moving on. Call stacking. So this one is a bit hard to read in grayscale, but you can see where the numbers are, and that's where the bar in that graph is. So the initial call versus the overlap for incidents, and you can see that there's quite a bit of overlap here, 32%. Moving on to inspections. This
Can we ask
information.
questions
Oh
as we
yeah,
go
I mean,
along?
stop me at any time if you want to chat about
I
stuff.
just wondered if there's a industry standard for call overlap and whether we're high or low or about average.
I haven't heard one, but I'm hopeful that the standards that cover might
Touch on it.
touch on it, that, you know, X amount of overlap gets to the point where you need to add another service unit, another station. There's gotta be somewhere out there between the accreditation and.
So when you talk about, overlap, you're saying that 2 engines were out, not that one engine that was out got a second call while it was out.
32% of our incidents are overlapping. So we could have 3 incidents going at the same time. The wind event, we had 6 or 7 incidents that are overlapped at the same time. But it's, I don't know, Tony,
Earthquake?
Yeah,
Earthquake, yeah, that was-
you were talking about, or somebody was talking about that it's like at least once a day, we're having both stations, 2 stations are committed regularly.
What it doesn't take into consideration is if it's 2 stations that are committed and then you have a third one out and then a 4th call comes
Yeah.
in, frequently they're, might have an ambulance on scene and they're like, hey, we got another call, we gotta go. So it's just this revolving,
There's no term for that.
no, yeah,
Triple stack.
yeah, it's triple quadruple.
So another statistic that's not in here that in my perusing around trying to educate myself on various things, one of the other statistics that I've seen is how often, what percentage of time an engine was out. Not out of service, but out on a call. So, and I think there's some level at which if you're out too much of the time, then it's like these guys are going to be burned out. And I don't know, so is it 25% of the time, 50% of the time? I don't know what that number needs to be. But once again, the public would like them to be out 100% of the time, but you can't function at that level.
I want to say, I was talking to Sean over in Eureka, and he was, just to put it in perspective, Humboldt Bay is running about a 50% call volume overlap. But to your point, I'm sure Station 3's call volume is a heck of a lot different than Station 4. You remember, how many calls were you guys running out there at Station 3 a day?
Oh, a day? It would average anywhere between 8, I would say, to high days of over 20, 24.
If we were running 20 calls out of one station, that would be, you're talking burnout factor.
Yeah.
And again, I think you can look at it as a percentage, if you will. 5 stations sharing the burden of running calls like that, that's one thing. But, if you boil it down that we have, a station running 10 calls a day, for our organization, I'm just being, shooting from the hip, I think you're starting to approach that burnout factor where and especially, are your calls at 6 in the morning, or are they at midnight?
Yeah.
If everything's happened when the sun goes down, that's a double whammy. So those are definite things that I have yet. In the fire chief manual when I got hired, it didn't say X amount of calls equals another station, but trust me, I was looking for it because those are the things that, you know, it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayer input on it, and you gotta show the data. I mean, the nice thing is we have that, and hopefully we can slice and dice it out if that's something that you want to see.
But overlap means something different for Humboldt Bay because they have 5 stations. That just means 2 stations are out at the same time, right?
At least.
And they still have three behind, whereas if we have overlap, we only have 1 station.
There's no one left.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Again, yeah,
It's not a very.
it's unique to us, but I just to put it in perspective, I mean, because I know they're running 8,000 calls a year, and you know we're nowhere near that, but some days it feels like it.
And then do they have, you said you were running, how many calls?
I'm trying to be fair with
on
my
crazy-
number. The stations 1 or stations 3. I would think 8 in a day is a pretty realistic number. Obviously getting into the 20s, that would be a very, very busy day.
And that's 1 crew per station.
Yeah, with 3 people.
3
When you look at station,
But just
2,
1 crew, I mean, they're still going out.
So I
once an
believe
hour.
Station 2, which is off of Herrick, district station, but part of the JPA now, they run around 800 calls a year for that station. But an interesting stat would be to see how many of those calls are backfilling for Station 3, which is back into the city. That's where that call volume for that station starts to rise.
Okay.
So the thing with numbers that are always really challenging is that we see the incident side of it, right? But there's all the other elements that we're doing through the day, the training, taking rigs out of service, all needing to go to maintenance issues. And so those are all moments where our employees are very much engaged with what they're having to do. And they're more likely an incident to occur when they're driving, just normal code 2 driving, because that's what we do more often. So we are busy with all of the aging fleet that we have, the calls that we have, the training that we're doing. We were just up at the airport yesterday, so we have most of our district all the way to McKinleyville, and so it's, you know, with an emphasis trying to cover back to Arcata. So we're definitely, our day will go by and you go, where did the hours go? Because we're put in quite a bit of hours of movement, of work, if that, which doesn't always translate to just the incident, but things that are needing to be done.
Carry on.
Okay.
Prevention.
Let's see, we are on page 81 with inspections now. This was mostly taken from Matt Knowles, the fire inspector. You can see the amount of apartments, hotels, schools, and sprinkler systems that were done over the year. Total was 551. Some notable things we put on here, we just wanted to let everyone know that we completed annual inspections on 294 out of 295 group R occupancies. So that was a compliance rate of 99% for this reporting period. And then we completed annual inspections on 22 out of 23 group E occupancies for those are schools, and that's a compliance rate is 96% for this reporting period. So lots of apartments and schools, we're getting into them now. You know, most people are letting us into their apartments, and that's nice. And we've seen a little bit of a decrease in fires because of that. So
Has your fake fire marshal showed up again?
no,
Are you talking about Alyssa?
No,
I'm real.
the guy
Thank you
who was
very
posting-
much.
Yeah, no, he disappeared.
No, I think we spooked him.
Okay.
And the community was very up in arms about that. So I think people are way more, you know, now if someone's knocking on their door, they're really using the peephole, looking for the car, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, we haven't seen a resurgence of the imposter. Next page is fire marshal activity count. Most of the things that we do are construction inspections and plan review. So you can see that those bar numbers are very high. And it's been really great getting to go on all of those and learn from Ed. And then the last page is mostly just my social media summary. I don't know if you want me to read through these or if anyone wants to read through them themselves, but some notable things was just the increase in followers. If you go to the bottom, we had 112% increase in Facebook followers. So that's, it's almost 5,000 now. because every single day when I log into Facebook to check on it, there's a place where I don't know if anybody else knows about this secret place, but it says send invites. It says send 20 invites to people who maybe are friends of our page, but haven't liked our page. We actually invite them to like our page, and almost every single person actually likes it. So that is attributed a lot to that increase. The 632% increase on Instagram is mostly just due to the fact that we have one now. So
I thought it was Tony.
it definitely has a little bit to do with this one.
Where's the deer post?
Anything works, so it's good.
So yeah, and you know one thing I will say is it is really tough to be a PIO sometimes and get up in their faces, because they don't like it when I get up into their faces with the phone camera. But it is what sees a lot of people like seeing their faces. So that's been it's been nice to see feedback from that, and lots of engagement on our social media. So thanks to Bill Walzer, he is a huge proponent of our engagement. Thank you to Edna Sung, Tyler's mom. She is a huge proponent of our engagement. So yeah, those are two of my superstars right there who like and comment on every single thing that we have. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it.
Is this all up on the website?
It is.
So just
Well, it will be when we upload our. Oh no, the annual stats are up there. Yeah.
Can you make the correction on page 77? There wasn't $1 million in losses in McKinneyville, please. Can you flip flop those numbers?
Where did I what?
So that people don't think we're just burning down houses on purpose.
Uh-oh, where did I fudge?
Page 77,
77.
McKinleyville line. You've got present values at 30,000 and losses at $1 million.
Whoops.
So let's just flip flop those.
So just to let you know,
Oh.
this page,
Oh.
Alyssa and I have struggled with. how
This
to make
page
it, but
was,
yeah, it's still.
yeah, I deleted several columns, we moved a million
Thank you
things
for
around.
pointing out our.
I still want McKinleyville to think we're burning down their houses on purpose or something.
Isn't that a song?
No,
Right,
they were
exactly.
only worth $29,000.
That's right. All of McKinleyville, that's right.
Thanks, Alyssa.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for getting that one.
Yeah.
I'll invite comments and questions from directors. We've had some already, but I just would start out by acknowledging your contribution, and that I go to Redheaded, Black Belt, and Lost Coast Outpost for my local news. And I've seen the articles and press releases and stuff like that.
Awesome.
And I think that's pretty important, because there's lots of people who use those. I'm not a Facebook person.
Yeah.
I don't even know what Instagram is. And,
You're such a
but-
boomer.
I know. And I'm the old one here.
No, you don't want to know. They're making fun of us for being old. Is what's happening.
Remind us what the
Thank you, Eric.
X, Y,
I
and Z
appreciate
and
that.
boomer
Thank
are.
And I likewise, thank you for, I mean, it's your job, but this is great, because this is a step in the right direction towards all these measures and funding and stuff. I mean, this was missing the last couple of times around, and getting ahead of this stuff and being out there and having a message is going to help a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So
And I've been out there.
just for, yes, she's been out there. So this report that I give, the chief's report, the monthly stats, Alyssa's been assigned to do the McMac. So you talk about getting involved in the McKinneyville group. Every month she's given a public safety report to the McMac group on what the fire department's doing, and we're specifically gearing it to the McKinleyville stuff, because they don't want to hear about Manila and Arcata and everything else. But if it's something big, yeah. But trying to show the value of what we're not burning $1 million worth of buildings down. But
Well, and when these measures come around and people start coming out of the woodwork saying wackadoo things about them, having all of this out there beforehand and over, it really blunts those a lot of times false messages, and,
Yeah.
and so it helps a lot.
one other thing, and as Chris just whispered in my ear, this is, because of her, but it's because of you. You authorized the full-time position to make this happen. And again, when it was just, two knuckleheads in the office.
Old knuckleheads.
Old knuckleheads in the office.
Bless your heart.
This was not out there, so
Yeah.
having that dedicated position, playing Facebook all the time, I give her a bad time because she's always on Facebook.
But is it growing?
It is growing.
Is it
It's
growing? Is that what we
putting our information out.
Yes. Yeah, thank you all for taking that chance on me. I really appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to check out the
Take off.
Instagram page.
Yeah, get on there.
Okay, moving on to correspondence and communications. For public correspondence, there's a ABFA monthly activity report that you can look at. And
So I got to fall on the sword. I was supposed to include a letter from Fred White, I believe was his name. He sent an email to Directors Laudenschlager, Mendoza, and Maynard, and myself. And I did not get it included into a board packet, so I have a printed copy. And I'd like to read the beginning, just for those folks out in YouTube land. So he says, Dear Chief McDonald, Chair Maynard, Director Mendoza, and Laudenschlager, please feel free to forward this message to other board members, staff, and anyone you want. First of all, thank you always for your service and dedication to our extended community and to those and to the protection of health and safety of the people of our region. Second, to be clear, I'm here to support you. If it ever sounds as though I'm saying I think you should do this or that, then I apologize, as that's not my intent. You are the experts, and to extend that I can supply information that helps you, I'm happy to do that. For clarity, I'm dividing the message into two sections. What is in the draft EIR, which he's referring to the City of Arcata's General Plan 2045, and the EIR that goes with it, and then his views and opinions. He is rather lengthy in there, and I do appreciate it because he had taken the time to do a word search for fire and is absolutely an advocate of the fire district, not only with the City of Arcata, but also with the Cal Poly Humboldt housing projects. There is some information in here that if the board wants to discuss it, because I did not get it in the board packet, we cannot discuss it tonight, but if the board so chooses, we can agendize it and bring it back at next month's meeting. If you want to discuss it, respond to it.
I responded to him. Would it be appropriate for me to read that tonight? Or I did respond to his message, but if you want to hear it. Otherwise, the clerk has a copy of my response.
Yes, so that's what we would do. We, excuse me, we would have, I mean, you're welcome to read it because we're being recorded. It will, if you would like, I will just simply add it as a copy to this attachment as well.
Well, it's not long. I can
Yeah, go ahead.
quickly. I wanted to be responsive to our constituents. I said, Dear Mr. Weiss, thank you for sending information on the Arcata General Plan and Gateway Area Draft EIR. I appreciate your work referencing pages in the DEIR that are related to the fire district. I will definitely review those pages. The public process for the proposed Gateway project has been extensive. I believe the city has been receptive to public safety concerns expressed by the fire district personnel. I particularly appreciate how the city has stepped up to partner with the fire district on the upcoming standards of coverage study. Speaking only for myself, as one vote on the fire district board of directors, I believe it would be inappropriate for the fire district to opine for or against the Gateway project. My input to our staff and board members has been that we should confine our comments to issues directly related to the delivery of fire or public safety services to the communities we serve. Thank you very much for reaching out. Please feel free to contact me anytime you have questions or comments about anything involving the fire district.
I will print that and attach it.
Okay.
So again, back to directors, if that's something that needs to be further discussed, or if the board wants to take any action on the draft EIR, we would need to schedule it as a regular business item.
I'm with Randy. I don't think it's necessary to do it as a board.
I had a different opinion. I don't know, can I talk about that? Are we,
Just for next month.
If we want to discuss it, if we want to discuss the draft EIR, then I would say let's agendize it for next month. And unless, is there a timeline on it that we're up against?
not, there is, but I don't,
Your opinions are not tied to that timeline?
No.
Okay.
Well, and are you wanting to,
we can do this in April when I'm back, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Well, I want to hear what you have to say, so I want to make sure you're here if we bring it back.
yeah, when he's back?
'Cause
Right.
that's
So
been your-
In April,
that's been
Agendize it
your-
for April.
You're more versed on this than any of us,
right.
so.
Okay, we'll put it on the agenda for, I'll work with you on the staff report for bringing it back.
Okay.
I'll watch the YouTube. I won't be here.
Oh, yeah.
Committee reports. Fire Station Committee.
Yeah, so Jason and I met today, and we'd like to dissolve this subcommittee until further notice. With the standard of coverage coming up and everything, we just don't think there's much to do until we get that report. So we'd like to disband that. That's a report.
Okay.
Until the completion of the standards of coverage?
Yeah, it should be revisited after that, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
Reconstitute.
the question that I would have with regard to that is how does that dovetail with the decisions that the board has to make about long-term lease? And I don't have those dates fixed in my own mind, so don't we have something this summer and in the fall where we have to accept something that'll take us through till 2029 or something like that?
Yeah, we have the lease renewal, which is before the interest rate adjusts, and then we have a window of opportunity to give them notice to back out if the interest rate is too much for the board.
Do you need this subcommittee to do that? I mean, that's a whole board decision. Would that be in closed session?
Yeah, so the contracts, any discussion of the contracts would be done via closed session. I think to Eric's point, if the board is looking at, the contract comes back and it's cost prohibitive to continue to rent the Arcata station, then what do we do? And where do we go? And that would be, something that either the committee would have to deal with, bring back to the board, or the board would deal with it as it came up.
When was the standards of coverage supposed to be completed? I thought that was,
6 to 9 months is what the contract said.
and it was from when, what date? When?
We'll start Friday. So,
And I'm happy to keep the committee together, to Eric's point, as far as those contracts and stuff go. Whatever the board the entire board would like to do, I think it would just be funneled through that committee to the board anyway, so I can't see a two-man committee making any decisions that the board would need to discuss thoroughly amongst themselves anyway, so in a closed session.
So I guess
But I understand what you're saying. I
the,
just don't know how that would work.
my understanding is these subcommittees make a recommendation to the rest of the board. So like with the finance one, Nicole and I sit down with the chief and the new chief and look at our mid-year budget and next year's budget, and then we work those out with you, and then we come back and make a recommendation to the rest of the board. And so what my thinking on this one is some of the subcommittee would work with staff to look at what the options were, so that when we're making the decision, whether it's in closed session or open session, that we have a recommendation from you on what's feasible and what's operational, and, you know,
Sure, that makes sense.
cost constraints and stuff like that. So you'd be making
Okay, so let's
recommendation to us.
keep it together then for the time being with that purpose. And then we have nothing to report currently. Thank you, Eric. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, the AVFA Local 4981 and AFPD Relations Committee.
Nothing to report.
Okay. The Budget Committee has nothing to report. We haven't had a meeting, but we are supposed to have one scheduled for next week, if we can, so we can
Yeah, Nicole should be back in town today. Get a time nailed down for her. We got the county registers in, so we have a better idea of where our funding looks for this year, and we'll start throwing out preliminary for next fiscal cycle as well.
So we should have information for you at the next meeting or the April meeting. Chief's monthly report. Can we please have the chief's report?
So real quickly, we had quite a few auto aids out of the district. A couple up north, both were RV fires up in the West Haven Trinidad area. We had a structure fire, although I don't know, was it much of a structure? The house blew up.
the one up in...
Yeah, up in Neyland. And given the location of where it was at, it was pretty much a total loss when the West Haven unit arrived on the scene. Anyway, breakdown, we had 304 incidents for last month. As Chris caught, this is one of the rare occasions that McKinneyville outpaced Arcata, or at least the city of Arcata, for call volume. At 144,964 in losses and over 11 million in pre-incident values. And again, we were lucky enough not to receive any mutual auto aid, but we gave it 6 times, and about 25% of the time we had call overlapping as well. For monthly administrator report, Captain Johnson is taking on the sign project. He's working up a cost to mimic the sign that's, or at least the size of the sign of the construction of the one out in McKinneyville, so we can plug one in here at Arcata, and then a modified one that is going to go out in front of Mad River. The Major F Committee, we were not able to fill the quorum. There's only 3 members of the committee. 2 of them didn't show up the other day. We actually met yesterday. So they drafted up their findings. We'll put it together, they'll approve it, and then we'll bring the report back to the board on March 12th. Recruitment, Nathan Baxley was offered the job for a fire captain position. He will be joining us from a fire agency to the south. He'll be starting March 7th. Today he stopped in to get fitted for gear. He'll be put on a 4-week FTO, and I believe he's going to be assigned to you.
Yep.
So he'll shadow Nate for a week, and then drive for a week, and then in the hot seat for a week, and then sink or swim, baby. And then he'll be permanently assigned out to B shift to backfill behind Ross. Annexation. So I just got off, last week, a conference call with the CAO's office and the two members of the Board of Supervisors, as the Fire Service Subcommittee. Our annexation was discussed, so much like subcommittees here, they heard the concept of us annexing Chicago Creek and Fickle Hill, and the tax revenue sharing agreement that the county has. The subcommittee agrees, so it's going to go in front of the board. The information from Colette from LAFCO, they're working with the auditor's office and to get the affected parcels out there. The notifications will be going out via the LAFCO process here at the end of the month. We will tag our logistics team to take vehicles and go out and kind of, as best they can, out in the rural area, go door to door and make sure that information is out there. Alyssa's already designed a web page that will have our information, everything at, and will also link into the LAFCO web page. John Miller, who is a consultant with LAFCO, has developed a map of the annexation area, so somebody can click on their parcel, see what it would cost as far as our special tax and our benefit assessment. I did find it interesting. So we are going to qualify for 50% of the ad valorem of that annexed area. And because of what we've done for our fire district, we have our own tax mechanism. So we get a large chunk, 50% of our ad valorem. So remember, that's 5% of the 1% of the value. So it sounds like a lot, but it's not. We're going to get $6,700 in ad valorem. That's, not really much, but the bigger part is we're going to see a significant chunk of change, probably $30,000 coming back to us for our benefit assessment and property tax.
Pay for the safer grant.
Yeah. The big thing is that these folks will be constituents. They'll belong to you, Jason, maybe Randy, depending on how the line gets drawn. But we will stop billing for out-of-district responses. And we've had 3 significant fires since we've been doing it. It's all pretty terrible. Sorry, your house burned down. Here's a bill for $7,000 for our time and effort. And they'll become taxpayers just like everything else. We can justify going out there and not having to send a bill.
Who draws the director division lines?
We do. It goes off of the census, and it's based on the population in each of the voter precincts. So every 10 years we get that information and kind of calculate those precincts. This last census changed. We didn't see that much of a change in the population. I forget what Colette said. It was like less than 10%. We don't have to redistribute the lines. So this may cause in the next one a little bit of, but the population, there's not much population out there, mostly timber. The other key thing to take into account is tax roll. 25-26 is when we would actually see funding coming from those parcels out there. So even if it's approved, it's still a little, excuse me, a little ways out.
But we won't be billing them.
But we won't be billing them. The last thing under the monthly administrative report I didn't have on there, Chris reminded me, because some of us were out on some tropical island, enjoying
Tropical drinks.
tropical rain, not horrendous, copious amounts of rain. But after the flood of 2024, Cal OES said, oh, hey, if you need resources, you can reach out. So Chris was able to coordinate via the local area, pre-positioning local government resources, and those resources were paid for through OES funds. We staffed an engine and utility / gator for flood standby, flood assessments, and if there was mud flows or anything like that, we would be tasked with going out. Southern Humboldt had quite a bit more.
Gosh, yeah, I think they were in the neighborhood of 8 engines. back
And
then.
engines. But CalOS had, this pot of money, whether it's a wildfire response, they also have it now for mud flow and some other stuff. But, like any weather service, when we plan for it, not much happens.
It's like having a generator.
Yeah,
You
when
never
we
know
didn't
what's
plan
happening.
for it, we're looking at the Mad River going, holy smokes, I've never seen it that full.
So the gator got,
Got
we got some
got some money for it.
money out of it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Do we have any inflatables or inner tubes or anything that?
We got some on the engine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not, we saw so much, like 20-foot round stumps floating
Yeah.
down there. I mean, they weren't floating, they were motoring down the river. It was crazy.
It seems like with wing in town here, that
Yeah.
we ought to have a wing.
Well, as part of that pre-position, we had another Type 3 engine from Humboldt Bay and their wing inflatable that they got on standby. So, yeah.
As far as equipment out of service, I was mentioning Randy the other day, we are robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're taking parts off of the reserve engine to put on the in-service engines, wipers, sirens, little things, but still. Tony picked up 8239, it had a glitch. He said it's back in service. I was facetiously saying, are you sure? Yeah, it had a little wiring issue, but Type 3 is back in service. The water tender is in the shop. The retarder for the braking system was not working correctly, so they finally got the parts. So slowly but surely, we're getting the antique fleet back in service. And I'll leave you with that and Alyssa's beautiful prevention monthly statistics that she does for Ed and Matt.
So, directors matters. Do any of the directors?
Actually, I just have one question for the chief.
Okay.
Apologize. Are we on our way to ordering a new engine? What's the talk about that?
There's lots of talk.
Yeah.
We are waiting to hear back from the Humboldt Area Foundation Board. They had a meeting last week, wasn't it?
I was sitting here thinking that no news is not good news.
Yeah, our champion supporter, EDSA, took them to task and fought on our behalf. I would say it's not over, but it's still pending out there. And sometimes they work slow. I know we've had other grants from them that take a while to come through the pipeline, so.
The committee had a recommendation for the board, but they would not tell Edie what it was.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
we do have an apparatus committee that's been kind of spooling up to start thinking of specs as far as what we want to see on the next one.
Okay.
So can I just throw out, one of the thoughts that Edie and Humboldt area had is that, and also with the Berg Foundation, is that they don't pay for interest, but they thought that if we took money out of the vehicle maintenance fund for the interest on purchasing a piece of equipment, that they could that Berg Foundation could perhaps fund, that loss, so, that was just one of their recommendations if they approved it. So it sounded really good, when they were talking about it, but we'll see how it comes out. Does that make sense? They can't pay for interest, but they can pay for vehicle maintenance. So Berg can come up with a chunk of money, 40,000 or something for, would be the interest payment. But it was 45,000 or something.
And our vehicle maintenance cost to date is $59,000, so, yeah.
So that's just something, when you're doing the budget, keep that in mind, we might need to do that switch if we do get that funding.
Are there grants, like safer grants for equipment? I mean,
So there's what's called the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. In discussing with the grant writers, that slice of the pie keeps getting smaller and smaller. And to be able to get an apparatus fully funded at this point, you really have to have apparatus that's so outdated, like back into the 90s, to be able to be awarded a grant for replacement.
thank you.
And that's gotta be your frontline piece of
Yeah.
equipment.
Isn't that still new?
Looks new.
Director matters. Do any of the directors have any comments or topics they would like to discuss at this time? Keeping in mind that no action will be taken on the topic discussed. However, a director may ask me, the president, to agendize a future topic.
I have something I'd like to say. Since I have been here, I think 2017, is that when I came? Something like that. Anthony Benalicia has been a bright star. He's been a super bright star. And it's so hard to think about what he and his family have gone through. And I just want to recognize him and my appreciation and just knowing him and what an outstanding, great guy he was. And even though Sacramento Metro hired him, I think he will always be a part of our organization. I think of him, along with Archie. Archie's always going to be a part of our organization, and Anthony, in my heart, is always going to be a part of this organization. So my heart goes out to his family and to his coworkers. It's a really tough one.
And if you need a board member to do anything, let me know.
So that's it for me.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you for that. We have a closed session.
Don't mind, can we take a recess real
Yes.
quick while I run upstairs and get some information tonight?
Sure.